Welcome to Madlit Musings, the podcast where you get to eavesdrop on your favorite authors without getting caught. I've been stoked to have authors like Angela Hunt, Bill Myers, Nicole Deese, Tessa Afshar, comedian Bob Smiley, and more on the show, and this year I have another great lineup of storytellers and truth-sayers. If you love to eavesdrop at coffee shops like I do, this is the podcast for you. It's where we get real, we get tough, we laugh, and we might even cry. It's where we meet authors on a different level, where every story and podcast episode has its own heartbeat. So hang out with me today. I'm Jamie Jo Wright, your host at Madlit Musings. This is your podcast for real chats with real authors about real life. Hi everyone, it is Jamie Jo Wright here. We are back. I love this new season of Madlit Musings. I'm super excited because we have some guests who have been here before. I was going to say old guests, but you're not old, Jamie. I have Jamie Ogle with me today, so I'm not going to age you.
Ask.
But you're a repeat guest. You're a repeat guest, and then we're going to have new guests this season. So I'm thoroughly excited. But welcome back, Jamie.
Thank you for having me. Excited to chat with you again.
It's great to have. Yeah, it's great to have you here. And we have a mutual first name, and so it seems only right that we share some time together and some coffee.
For sure.
So, for those of you who don't know who Jamie is published by Tyndale Publishing. And she's an award-winning author of historical fiction full of danger and good rebels and deep faith. And you write in the biblical time period, correct?
Not quite biblical. It's very early church history, but it's kind of after the Bible times end.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think sometimes people see the cover and they're just like, oh, it's biblical.
Yeah. I mean, it looks very biblical. It feels that way. It does. But yeah.
So early church history. So explain where that would fall for anybody who may not be understanding. We have like the life of Christ, and then this would be the early church right after.
So after the life of Christ, then we have the early church where the apostles are going around and spreading the gospel. And then sort of after they die and the church is now kind of on its own a little bit. As far as like the people who've known Christ are all dead. This is the 3rd century, 4th century, several hundred years after Christ.
All right. Yep, that makes sense. So we're kind of dealing with a couple generations removed now from witnesses being alive and having witnessed Christ and his ministry, and now the church is starting to form. Is this set in Rome, or where are you setting your novels?
So my first story is set in the city of Rome. So that one's about St. Valentine. And then As Sure as the Sea, which releases February 11th. That one's set in the eastern part of the Roman Empire, which is like modern day Turkey. So this is like the Greek speaking half of the Roman Empire.
Oh, okay. So, and help me with my history. I think I've got it. Greek was the dominating power, and then Rome moved in and conquered Greece. And now, but then Greece still kept some of their structure, correct?
Yeah. So like when Rome would conquer, they would allow people to keep their culture, their language, their religions, but like we're just gonna rule you in government. So the Greek speaking portion of the empire, I mean, still had all their very Greek culture. And then just, we're ruled by Rome.
Yeah. So not unlike Israel, when Israel had their own, you had King Herod and their own different rulers and people within, but still under Roman rule. So gosh, those Romans, they ruled everything. I was looking at a map the other day and I couldn't believe, I knew that I'd seen it before, but I couldn't believe how far into England and all of those areas that they actually managed to go. I was like, wow.
Yeah. So this book is kind of at the tail end where the empire is the biggest and it's too big for one man to rule. So then Emperor Diocletian divides it up between 4 emperors.
Yep.
So this is the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end of the Roman rule. All right. So we have the title. It's called As Sure as the Sea. And we were talking right before we hit record. If anybody looks over your shoulder, they can see the book cover. And it's so cool how the spine of the cover carries over the image from the front of the cover. And we were trying to like, oh, that's just like really cool. Do other books do that? Or is that's so cool?
I know, I'll have to go get doubles of all these books on my shelf and just check it out.
Yes. Yeah, so anybody who's going to get As Sure as the Sea, if you really want it to look cool on your bookshelf, you're going to want to get two copies so that you can do that, where you can do the front facing and then the spine and have the full cover. Well, tell us a little bit about As Sure as the Sea. Like, Of Love and Treason is your first book, and that's actually a Kirsty Award-winning novel. And so that was really exciting when you won that. And like you said, it's the story of St. Valentine. But what is As Sure as the Sea about now? Where are we going with this story?
So As Sure as the Sea is about 30 to 40 years after Of Love and Treason. And we're kind of we're going away from Rome into the, like I said, the Greek side of the Roman Empire. And this is a retelling of the life of St. Nicholas. So we have, Demetria and Nicholas are both the main characters in the story. She's a diver who's weighted down by the guilt of her past, and he's an heir to a sunken fortune. And they have to kind of combine their skills and work together to save the church in their city that they're under intense persecution. So while they're kind of wrestling through the guilt and shame of their past and how they can live in forgiveness.
Okay. All right. Now, when you say St. Nicholas, everybody is probably instantly going to think of Santa Claus. Are we talking about the same St. Nicholas?
We are. I mean, yes and no.
To a degree.
To a degree, yes.
Not the rotund, white-bearded.
No, this is not the North Pole Santa. This is, so like the story of the guy who goes around at night putting gifts in people's houses. Yes, this is that St. Nicholas. So this is that story, which, I mean, eventually over many years and I don't know, twists, we get to the North Pole Santa. But
right. So tell us a little bit about, because I don't know how many people actually understand that St. Nicholas, as we know St. Nicholas with Christmas traditions, is really not where St. Nicholas came from. So take us a little bit there into the historical background and then what took you into this book.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the first thing, he's not born in a cold place. He was born on the beaches of the turquoise coast of modern day Turkey, some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. White sand, palm trees, just pretty. And when he becomes famous for gift giving, he's not this old man with a white beard. He's pretty young. He's between 20 and 40. And he was a church leader. So he gets put in charge of this church because the old pastor died. Nobody wanted to take over the job. So everyone decided whoever comes to the funeral first and comes through the doors, like, that'll be the new pastor. We'll just let God decide. Nobody else shows up but Nicholas. He walks in. He doesn't know that this is the plan. And they're like, surprise, you're going to be the new pastor. And he accepts.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then he's known for he was a wealthy heir, and he gave his money to help people. And a lot of people kind of probably know some of those stories that I just mentioned. But what really isn't well known is the context of his life and of his gift giving. So during this time where he's between 20 and 40, Christianity was illegal. They were under the reign of Emperor Diocletian and the following tetrarchy. And Christians were intensely persecuted. Church leaders were arrested, imprisoned, killed. They're burning churches, burning books. And in some parts of the Roman Empire, it was illegal to even buy and sell if you had not first made a sacrifice and declared that the emperor was God. You'd get this little token. You could go to the market and buy and sell. So, like, this is super intense. And so now, when you know, like, this is the world he's living in. This is the world, these stories of, going around at night and giving gifts of food and money to people. Now you kind of like, wow, okay, he's not just this super good guy. he's like really risking his life to take care of the people around him.
Yeah.
And that just becomes an intense story then.
It does, because when you think about it, so if you were a follower of Christ, in order to buy a loaf of bread or wheat or whatever they would have made bread with, I would have had to make a sacrifice and disavow my faith, essentially, to proclaim the emperor as God. And so that would have been bad.
Yeah.
As far as faith is concerned. So so Nicholas isn't just like bestowing gifts on you because you were good and it's Merry Christmas. It's here, you need some gifts so that you can actually live and feed your family and keep the faith. Wow. That's a part I didn't know about. I knew that there was Saint Nicholas and he was, wealthy and was generous with his things for the poor. A lot of times is how it's worded. I didn't realize it was a part of keeping the faith and the gospel alive.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It changes the whole story then when you kind of know that.
It does.
You're kind of putting all these other things into that perspective.
Right. That's crazy. Okay, so how did you come to decide that, I'm going to write this story, and it's kind of would it be safe to say it's a fictional retelling?
Yeah, I would call it that, a fictional retelling. I tried to keep as much of the truth of what we know about him in the story, and then kind of wrap it in other things in fiction. So
other things, right?
Yes.
And then you have the heroine. You said her name is Demi. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Demetria, but she goes by Demi.
Okay. And she's a diver? Is that how you worded it?
Yes.
Okay. So talk to me about that, because I'm picturing snorkels and, flippers, and I know that was not what she had to dive with. So
yeah. So as I was researching Nicholas and his story and what life was like in this city, in this part of the world, I was like, okay, well, I need to have other things happening in this story. So what else, what else is around here? What are they doing? What are the main exports and things like that? And I stumbled across coral diving and coral harvesting for jewelry. So they used to send divers down or either just dredge the seafloor with huge beams and net coral. And they would only pick the red coral because it would stay red even after it dried out. So other things would bleach out and turn white. But red coral was special because it would stay this scarlet blood red color. So they had people, they would send them down as divers. They would dive and just hammer the coral off the reef and harvest it. And I was like, well, that is really fascinating. And then I immediately just had this image of Demi in my head. I knew her name. I knew everything about her just instantly. I've never had that happen before. I was like, okay, well, I guess the heroine is a diver. And I read some amazing books called Red Gold, if you're interested at all in the coral industry.
That is really interesting.
This man wrote a book about it, and he was a diver as well. He used to harvest coral, and now he works to save the coral reefs and everything. But fascinating story.
That's cool.
They would dive without gear and open their eyes and hold their breath for insanely long times.
Wow.
So
I was watching a show. Gosh, it was an outdoor channel type show, and they were doing deep sea diving, kind of in the old way of doing it, like spearfishing and such. I could not believe how long they held their breath.
Yeah,
it was so long.
Yeah, I was reading in this book that this diver wrote, and he was like you can hold your breath up to 10 minutes once you're really good at it, which is insane to me. I can't even imagine.
10 minutes?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Wow. How do you hold your breath for 10 minutes?
I don't know. I can do
Jamie,
30 seconds.
Let's try right now.
Okay.
I know. We're going to take a deep breath, and Jamie and I are going to not talk for 10 minutes. Okay. We're going to hold our breath and see who survives. Oh my gosh. Wow. I could see though how the red coral, I mean, because I guess if coral bleaches after, it's harvested, etc., then the red had to be like you kind of called it like a red gold, like it had to be
Hmm.
really valuable then, especially if people are diving for it for 10 minutes without oxygen. I mean, it comes at a high price.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so cool. What a fun thing to stumble on. Okay, so Demi is, that's what she does then,
That's what she
correct?
does.
Is
It's
she's
been
harvesting
her,
all of that. Okay.
yep, it's been her family, like
Okay.
her family thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Great.
and she helps. Her and her brother have the boat. They dive for
Okay.
this other man
Uh-huh.
who owns the business. But then when
Yep.
Nicholas arrives as the pastor in Myra, he ends up sinking his boat with all of his inheritance. And so they need to work together to
Oh.
kind of rescue his money so that they can save the church
Yeah.
in their town. So
Save the church. Great. All right. Well, while we're talking here, I had my daughter come in because I realized my battery is going to die. So one moment.
Oh, no.
Because that would be a bad thing. I don't want that.
No, we don't want that.
There we go. All right. So, this is what happens when you have podcasts. It's like you're in the middle of a good story. And isn't that how it is when you're reading a book too? You're like in the middle of a really good story and then something happens to interrupt and you're just like, stop.
Yep.
Don't.
Yep.
Oh, fun. Okay, so Nicholas arrives in a sinking boat. Now there's wealth at the bottom of the sea. We have Demi, who's a diver for red coral, which I'm still fascinated by. I want to go look it up now. And so how do they get thrown together? I mean, I can kind of see where the story is going to go as far as the fact she's a diver, so she's probably going to try and help find the stuff. But how do they actually meet and get thrown together then?
So it happens right away in the first chapter, so it's not really a spoiler. Demi and her brother are diving, and there's an accident, and she has to rescue her brother and kind of drag him out of the water. And Nicholas arrives in the sinking boat. He has to swim to shore. He ends up helping her, and that's where they first meet. And he doesn't tell anybody about his gold right away, so that's a little embarrassing, but. So he becomes the pastor of the church she's obviously a member of, and so they are kind of thrown together. And then Demi and her brother also bring supplies upriver to other Christian settlements upriver. They have this underground trade route, which they use to bring food back and forth between these farming communities and the people in the city, and goods that they can get in the city that the other people can't get. So they're running this this smuggling thing at night. And so when her brother is injured, Nicholas kind of steps in to help her with these. And so they're kind of thrown together a little bit there.
Got it.
So.
Okay. All right. What a neat story, and what a neat time period for people who come from the Christian faith and want to know what it endured to get to where we are today, to still be able to have it and to grasp it, and the people that really sacrificed so much to preserve that faith and that right to worship Christ and all of that. When you were doing the research for this, did you find or did you run across anything that changed how you look at your own personal faith?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's always a challenge when you read stories about persecution, about people who were killed for their faith and things like that. And we live in this very free country where we're not under those same kind of persecutions. We can get very kind of lax in it and just kind of comfortable where we're at. And so to hear these stories of just intense persecution, and almost to the point where it's hard to fathom what it was like.
Yeah.
Because there's a part of your brain that's like, well, why wouldn't you just burn the thing and say the words and you don't mean it, and like go about your life, go about your day. But so there's a part of you that's very like, oh yeah, like flippant about it. And then you have to think, wait, no, like Jesus gave his life for me. I can't I can't suffer a little bit for him? You know what I mean? Like, why do I think that I should
Mm-hmm.
just be able to skate through life and, you know,
Yeah.
give in here and there to just make it easy for me? And so that was really
Right.
convicting for me reading it. Like, okay, what ways am I
Mm-hmm.
doing that and not standing firm in my faith because that would be
Yeah.
uncomfortable? Or what if that person thinks I'm weird? Or what if I lose a friend because I stand for this and
Mm-hmm.
not that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
really convicting. Like, they were facing life and death and we're not,
Yeah.
but there's still a lot of things that we can pull from that and kind of consider.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I find it very challenging and very encouraging too, to see just the resilience
Yeah.
and who they believe God to be and how worthy
Mm-hmm.
he is of their sacrifice. And like, that just puts
Right.
God in a whole different light. It's, wow, they really, like, I don't know, we can kind of lose sight of who God is and his worthiness and his sovereignty and his power and just the
Mm-hmm.
immense sacrifice that he made for us. And just, yeah, to see other people get it and understand it and live for it, like really live for it, um, it's just really inspiring to me.
Right. 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 Well, it's interesting. I don't know if and I'm going to guess that you probably have. I mean, there's the book, Fox's Book of Martyrs,
Hmm.
that was written, and then I know the guys that were in DC Talk actually promoted a book called Jesus Freaks, which was written, I think, in the 90s, back in my very, very young years. Um, that was the continuation of the persecution of Christians throughout time that is still going on today. And it's
Hmm.
really phenomenal when you read the stories all the way back to the Fox's Book of Martyrs, which would include a lot of this time period too, I would
Hmm.
assume, and etc. But then up to even present day,
Yeah.
how severe the persecution is and how the faith of these individuals is so bolstered to stay so firm when, yeah, like you said, you could just kind of go through the rote motions in order to stay alive and still try to have your faith on the side, type of a thing. It's
Hmm.
pretty impressive.
It is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you were doing research for this book and you were studying all of this, what types of interesting things did you uncover that you, besides red coral, because that's cool, but what other interesting things did you uncover that you're like, oh, I've got to totally put that in the book?
Oh, that's a good question. I had a
You
lot
know,
of
and for readers who are listening, yeah, you're in the middle of writing another book too. So it's like, now you're
yeah.
like, okay, let me get off that book and go back to how I wrote this book.
Yeah. I think it was really fun to try to take the stories of Saint Nicholas, the little symbols that we kind of attribute to him, and
Mm,
try to work them into the
okay.
story a little bit and try to find, like, okay,
Hmm.
was there a cultural context for, we always got
Mm,
oranges stuck in our stockings at Christmas, like in the bottom of the toe of our
right,
Christmas stockings, we always had an
right.
orange. Like, where did that come from? Why is that a thing? And
Hmm.
I mean, they did have citrus groves around this area. Um, I don't know. It was just, and then the orange does play a symbol in the book, but I don't
Okay.
know. It was just kind of fun to research those kinds of
Yeah.
things, and how
Yeah.
Nicholas really did end up building a church in Myra, and where it's still there to this day.
Okay.
You can go and see it. Things
Was
like
it
that
really?
were interesting. Yeah, it's half
Okay.
covered by sand, so it's kind of like been half excavated, but
Okay. That's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome. Cool. Well, the book comes out February. Do we have an exact date?
11th, February 11th.
February 11th. All
Hmm.
right. So just in time for Valentine's.
Yeah.
So if you're a reader, you can ask your Valentine to buy you the book, the first book that Jamie wrote, because it has Saint Valentine in it,
It
and
does.
then definitely get As Sure as the Sea, because you're going to want to have that on your bookshelf as well. Um, Jamie, if people want to find out more about you, follow your books, and learn about your first novel, and now As Sure as the Sea, where do they go to find that information?
You can go to my website. It's jamieogle.com. And there's links there to all my social media. I'm pretty active on Instagram. You can find me there. And then you can also sign up for my newsletter and stay on top of all the fun book news. And there's a free novelette on there too for those who sign up.
Ooh, so there's a bonus. Get a free novel when you sign up. All right. And Jamie is spelled Jamie, and Ogle is spelled Ogle. So that will help you find it. And what's coming up next for you?
I am like a month and a half away from turning in my third story, and it's a gladiator story. So I've got a female gladiator set in back in Rome, in the city of Rome.
Back in Rome.
Yep.
All right.
It's during the last gladiator games held in Rome. So
all right. Lots to read and look forward to. So Jamie, thank you so much for being with us today, and looking forward to seeing As Sure as the Sea hits the shelves.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jamie.
And that's a wrap for today here at Madlet Musings. I hope you join us again. And if you want to, be sure you like and subscribe here at your favorite podcast player or on YouTube, because you won't want to miss all the wonderful alerts that let you know when we have another conversation for you to eavesdrop on.